What's up, family? Welcome back out of the darkness. I am Q, and I am getting my 15 hee-haws in this morning because, once again, the left has had to bow down and has had to accept the fact that they do not run the world, that in fact their political posturing has fallen on deaf ears once again. I am referring specifically to the largest and greatest sporting event in the world, in world history even, and that is the World Cup. Now, I said that there was a major mistake for the World Cup to be held in Qatar to begin with. When they first decided that they were going to have the World Cup in the desert, I thought, what a stupid idea. In fact, they realized afterwards that I was right, by the way, that they were not going to be able to even have the World Cup during the time that they would normally have the World Cup, which should have been in the summer of this year. They had to move it back to the winter because it's too hot in Qatar to have the World Cup during that time. In addition to that, Qatar is an extremely fundamental Muslim nation. Now, that's their right. They are a nation of themselves, unto themselves. They are a sovereign nation, so they have the right to run their nation the way that they see fit. Don't get mad at me, my Christian friends. I understand all the issues that are there, but I also believe in a nation's sovereignty. And I believe that as a nation has its own sovereignty, then they have to answer to God themselves for how they run that nation, not the United States and not to me. Well, they decided they were going to have this World Cup in Qatar, and they decided, just like most leftists, that they were going to impose their will on Qatar. Qatar, being a very fundamentalist Muslim nation, they decided they don't partake in alcohol. So they were not going to allow alcohol to be served at the World Cup. Well, that was a major fight because, alcohol sales are huge. Beer sales and alcohol sales are huge during the World Cup, and alcohol advertising. So they originally said, yeah, we'll allow alcohol to be sold in the building. After a lot of backlash from those in Qatar and from a lot of the Muslim leaders, they backtracked, said, no, we're not going to allow that. Budweiser was supposed to be the distributor, was supposed to be the manager of the alcohol sales there, and no, that was being thrown out. In addition to that, the left decided they were going to virtue signal and wear LGBTQ armbands, One Love, rainbow bands on their arms for the captains. Well, understanding that those in Qatar, that fundamentalist Muslim nations are very anti-gay, very anti-LGBTQ plus IA, these things, because they knew that, they thought they were going to once again shove their ideology down their throat. And they said, absolutely not in our house. Now, what's frustrating to me is that they thought they could get away with this because we've allowed them to do so. Conservatives have allowed the left to push their narrative down their throat, and they've been allowed to get away with it. So they thought they'd be able to get away with it here. Qatar said absolutely not. They pushed back. Now, the frustrating thing to me is we know that fundamentalist Islam is very anti-LGBTQ. We know that to be the case. So why would you even hold it in their backyard knowing that they were against this agenda in the first place? We had the entire All-Star game moved out of Atlanta simply because Georgians said, we want to make people show their ID to vote. And they said, absolutely not, we're pulling out. Coca-Cola, we're not going to support the MLB because we are against this voter suppression. So they pulled the entire event out. But you mean to tell me in a country, in a nation where slavery is upheld, that killing gays and lesbians is tolerated, that you are going to then hold the greatest sporting event in the world in that nation? Now, let me be clear. I don't appreciate or subscribe to the idea of hurting people because of the way that they live. Okay? I'm not subscribing to that. But I also have to say, you know what? I have to side with Qatar on this. You knew what their beliefs were when you decided to move the World Cup there. You knew what those beliefs were. For whatever reason, wanting to capitalize on the money in Qatar, whatever it was, for whatever reasons that you might have had, you decided to have the sporting event there. It is not on the people of Qatar to change their views. When in Rome, you do as the Romans do. The people of Qatar haven't changed. Their viewpoints haven't changed. But yet you will crucify conservatives in this country and around the world for standing by their beliefs, but you decide to reward the people of Qatar with the greatest sporting event on earth. To me, that sounds quite disingenuous. What do you guys think? Do you guys think that this is something that should be tolerated? Do you think that this was a great idea for them to put these armbands around the arms of the captains supporting the LGBTQ? Now, I don't want this to be about bashing LGBTQ. That's not what this is about. This is about the leftist feeling that they could go into a country and push their agenda on these people, and whether or not the people of Qatar have the right to say, you know what, we're not going to allow that, not in our house, not in our country. You knew what the rules were when you came in here. Don't try to change them now. I personally believe that they have the right to do that. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts. Make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe, push the little bell, make sure you get notifications so you don't miss anything. Be blessed. I'll see you next time.